From the studios of Foxboro Cable Access, located in the center of Foxborough, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxborough.
Welcome back to another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is Julie Love. I'm your host. Today we are recording a special episode with the Executive Director of Mass Cultural Council, Michael Bobbitt. Michael, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Julie. It's good to see you again.
Wonderful. So, Michael, can you tell our audience who you are and what you do at Mass Cultural Council?
Yes, absolutely. Happy to. My name is Michael Bobbitt. I am the Executive Director of Mass Cultural Council, which is your state agency that supports arts and culture throughout the whole state of Massachusetts. Arts, culture, the humanities, and the interpretive sciences. And we do this primarily through grants, which comes from an appropriation from the legislature. So thank you all for paying your taxes. We also get some funding from the National Endowment for the Arts, which is a federal agency. We support culture in many different ways, but most of it's through grant programs. We've been offering professional development and advocacy work, and just really uplifting the field in every way we can think about.
And then what is the website or social media people can learn more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's massculturalcouncil.org, and you can follow us on our many social media sites, especially if you're an artist or work at an arts organization or a cultural bearer. We are promoting our grant programs through many different mediums. So if you're out there, find us on social media or sign up for our newsletter on the website, and you'll get lots of information about us.
And I understand that this is very new position for you. When did you get this position as executive director? And then how did you learn about the organization?
Yeah, so I started in February of 2021 in the heart of the pandemic, which is probably not the best time to start a new job, working in a sector that was devastated by the pandemic. I learned about the agency because I moved here in the summer of 2019 to run New Repertory Theater, which is a theater in Watertown, Massachusetts. And Mass Cultural Council was one of New Rep's major funders. And so I got to know my predecessor, Anita Walker, and some of the program officers here, and dug through their website to find out more about them. Was surprised when I was reached out to about applying for the job, but I'm really glad I did.
And then how's the position going for you? What is it? What is your joy of being executive director? I know it's a lot of pressure and then a lot of work.
It's going well. My previous jobs were running theaters. It's a different world because when you're running a theater, you're managing artists and your nonprofit board, plus your staff and all of the audiences and donors that you're trying to reach out to. This is a different kind of an animal, but it's exciting because the job affords me the opportunity to really think at a high level what the cultural sector needs and how Mass Cultural Council can support them. So it's a different part of my brain that's being engaged. It's not the part that, as an artist, that takes up a lot of room. It's the part as an administrator and a leader. And one of the best parts is traveling around the state to see some of the great art that we have here. I remember going to Foxborough to the Marilyn Rodman Center? And you and I met at Mass Arts in Mansfield, which was very exciting. That's one of the best parts about my job, to drive up into these towns and cities all over the Commonwealth and just see so much great art that the state has to offer.
Thank you. So we met through my job at the Sun Chronicle for the Mass Arts Center. So shout out to them, and then gratitude to you and then your organizations to support the local arts around here. Would you please tell a little bit about our audience in Foxborough? How did you support the Mass Arts Center?
Sure. Well, we support them in a few ways. One is through some general operating support that we offer here at the agency. But when you and I met, we were at the grand opening of their newly renovated center. And that was funded through a program that we administer called the Cultural Facilities Fund. This is a fund that comes from bond money approved by the governor, and it goes through Mass Development, our partners on that, and organizations that have capital needs, renovations, new buildings can apply to us for these funds. And so we were so happy to be able to create Mass Arts, to be able to support Mass Arts Center in the renovation of their new theater. And it just looks so beautiful. And theater is my background, so I was so happy to be in that space and see the lights and the audiences and the stage and the paint, and to go up in the dressing rooms and see all the props and costume pieces sitting around brought me a lot of joy.
That is so wonderful. And then I personally went to Berkeley College of Music, and I know Mass Cultural Council has been helping some Berkeley program as well.
Yeah, I actually was a teacher there through their partnership with Boston Conservatory, yeah, in their theater program. So an intimate knowledge of Berkeley. And I remember that was when I was a young student studying the trumpet. That was my main goal, to get accepted to Berkeley. But that's, again, the best part about my job is that I get to experience all these different arts organizations around the whole country, the whole state. I remember going to Jacob's Pillow, a place that I dreamed about visiting and had one experience way back when. And to be able to go back as a supporter brings me a lot of joy.
Great. So what are the projects that you are working on currently?
At the agency, or grants to the sector?
Oh, Mass Cultural Council through the agency.
Yeah, so we just closed our grants for our COVID pandemic relief funds. We received $61 million from the legislature to support artists and arts organizations and culture bearers who suffered losses during the pandemic. And so we had one that closed in September for organizations, and November 1st was the close of the grant program for individual artists. So the staff is working really hard to go through all those applicants to make sure that everything that they need is in the application pool. We're also in the midst of our strategic planning process. This is our way to really stop and take a moment to assess what we're intending to do and how we're doing it, to hear back from the sector on what we're doing and how we're doing, and then to really set the direction for the agency for the next few years. So if you get on our site, you can actually find a survey where we're asking people that work in the creative sector to fill it out and give us some information that will inform our strategic plan. That's a good 6-month long process. And so we hope to have that finalized in March and April. We also have a grant program right now that's open for anyone that is doing festivals and projects for the public, so they can apply to those grant programs, $2,500 grants. So if you're doing like a book festival or a music festival or some other kind of arts festival, or you're doing a street art for the general public or public art, you can apply to those programs. And then we have a gaming mitigation fund that's open right now. So any performing arts organization out there that presents touring artists or tours can receive some support to support those programs. So a lot going on, which is why people should sign up for our newsletter and get on our social media sites and keep up to date on what we're doing.
It is really overwhelming amount of programs that you're running at the same time, and then I feel the Mass Cultural Council really is leveraging the artists throughout the state. And then I'm aware that Foxborough has Cultural Council here, and then you're partnering with many different towns of the Cultural Council. So will you tell me a little bit about Foxborough Cultural Council and the Mass Cultural Council's relationship?
Yeah, you're right. We're finding many ways as we can to support the cultural sector. And it brings great joy. And I give most of the credit to the staff, who's just amazing at running grant programs. So the Foxborough Cultural Council is funded partly, I'm not sure if they're funded fully by us, but they're funded partly by us to give out money to people in Foxborough that work in the cultural sector, both artists and organizations. Um, and so this was some legislation that came out. I'm not even sure how long ago that pushes money from us to the local areas. So theoretically, every city and town in the Commonwealth would have a cultural council that can fund artists and arts organizations in the council, and those grants are given out by a volunteer group of council members that are appointed by their municipalities, and monies are appropriated through them. I think we have 329 across the state. Some of the cities and towns merged to become one cultural council. But basically, the good part about it is that Mass Cultural Council touches and gives out funding in every single city and town in the Commonwealth, which is very exciting. So you can also apply to your local cultural council. I'm sure Mansfield has one, and Foxborough, and all the different areas that make up that area.
Yes, absolutely. So I want to shout out to Foxborough Cultural Council, and I got to be a part of one of the projects that they received the grant, which was Fox Tales. It's a monthly storytelling at the Mary Ortman Performing Arts Center that I got to be a part of. And then the last month, I wrote a story on a Foxborough Reporter, and then there were 6 storytellers. I was lucky enough to be invited to tell a scary story and then a family story this month. And then part of it, the grant was used to give out an award to the winner, and then just really bring out the real story, and then the sense of community, especially after the pandemic, and then in this digital age. It was very beautiful to see and hear these like stories, and then people gather around for it. So thank you to you and the organizations that are really supporting the grassroots effort to bring the people together through arts.
Yeah, there's nothing like arts and food that bring people together. And especially given what we've gone through in this society, the more we can gather and celebrate through art, the better I think the world will be. It's good for healing, it's good for educational purposes, it's good to cross ethnic and racial barriers. It is a great way to see the world from a different point of view. And so we're just happy that we can support all of that. And I hope everyone out there is supporting their local arts organization by registering for their classes and signing up and buying tickets to their shows. We also know that the cultural sector in Massachusetts puts $23.7 billion into the state's GDP. And sometimes it's the 3rd or 4th largest sector contributing to the GDP. We had statistics that showed that for every one person that buys a sporting event ticket in the Commonwealth, 5 people buy arts event tickets. It's a great, great, great thing to have in the state or the city and the town that you live in. And then it also supports other things. When you go to see a play or go to the museum, you often don't go by yourself. You go with other people. And you might sort of buy a new outfit or get your hair done or your nails done. So you're spending money there. You're getting in a car. So you're putting gas in the car, you're parking, or you're using public transportation or ride share, so that you're spending money and supporting those organizations. Often you will have a meal before the show, or coffee after the show, or a drink after the show. So the arts is so great for really driving the economy and all that through all that secondary spending that happens. So beyond it being a feel-good thing and good for mental health that we all know about, it's good for helping a community make money.
Absolutely. And I know we have obviously New York as Broadway and then the center of, theater and arts, but I feel like Massachusetts is really becoming a place where people are expecting high caliber performing arts, that I feel that we are going up there. It's not really competing with Broadway, but as I've seen the changes in our culture in Massachusetts, especially diversity and talent, that are pouring into our state. What do you think of maybe a shift or change that you might have witnessed for our state?
Well, one of the things I love about Massachusetts is that we have many of the longest running, first, premier, largest arts organizations in the whole entire world. There's many art that actually started here. They have a very active indigenous community where art is just part of their culture. And so the work they're doing is significant. It's the diversity of the arts is incredible. I've gone to some amazing arts events by multicultural organizations, some of my favorite activities. I think like our museums and our fine arts community and our dance and our music and our theater, it's some of the best work I've ever seen. And I've traveled all over this planet, and so I'm excited about it. And also, when I look at lists of like the top 10 reasons to live in this community or this state, Massachusetts is up there, and primarily because of its art. We have a lot of people that move here because they like a vibrant arts sector. And so it's something that we should be proud of, and we should uplift, and we should invest more in, because we have some good stuff here, and I think more people should engage with it.
And for the people who don't understand the value of the art and then what brings art, like you said about mental health and then about bringing the community together and then also economical boost, is there anything else that you can think of that arts are very important in our lives and then how we are leveraging our lives through arts?
Yeah, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of studies about students in school that engage with the art. They become better students. They come to school more. They become active participants in their communities, because when you learn to collaborate with each other over art, you just build empathy with each other. I'm always fascinated to see artists that come together over a piece of music that don't speak the same language except the language of music. They can be from all parts of the world, sit down with one piece of music, and they all play the same piece of music. So it builds community through multiculturalism, and the mental health support that arts does for people. And then my own personal story is that I grew up as a poor Black child from lower Northwest Washington, D.C., with not a lot of means. And it was the arts that saved me. Participating in DC public school after school programs in music and theater and dance really showed me other people's perspective, and I got to play and imagine myself in different worlds, and that kind of showed me that the world is bigger than the community that I was in. And so it saved me, and in many ways I think those experiences are still reflective of the work that I do now. If it wasn't for those experiences, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
So, what is your goal, maybe as a personal goal and also as Mass Cultural Council executive director, moving forward, maybe short-term goals and then the long-term goal?
Well, the biggest short-term goal right now, well, there are a couple of. One is to make sure that our funding is dispersed in the most equitable way as possible, both racial equity, rural equity, deaf and disabled folk. Want to make sure they are well included in our grant making. We're in the process of this strategic plan. So once that's done, we'll have our direction set for the next few years. And then I'm always trying to get more support from the legislature, because the sector continues to grow and inflation factors in. And I think as the sector that was the first to close and the last to open during the pandemic, I think the struggles we're going to have to sort of recoup and to get stable and healthy again are going to be a multi-year issue. So those are my main things to work on: continuing to support people as they get through the pandemic, to continue to advocate for more equitable resource sharing, and then continue to build relationships with our state legislators.
Thank you for that. And do you sometimes go to like house meetings at the state house and advocate for other artists and organizations as well?
Mostly for the sector in general. Occasionally, if I'm asked to, I might respond to another piece of legislation that doesn't have to do with our funding. But I do spend a lot of time with our legislators, either in their districts or during the major budgeting part of the season, meeting them on Zoom or in person to ask for an increase in our allocation. But I enjoy that. I really do love going, especially going to their communities when they're introducing me to their arts organizations. Uh, you can see how much they love what's in their communities, and I'm always there to see what I can do more to support them.
What would you say maybe one of the top projects that you were involved since you got appointed to this position that you've seen from the application process to the end process? For instance, the Mass Arts Center. I know you came there when it was in under the construction, and then you saw the grand opening, something like that. What are some of the good memories that you have so far?
Oh my gosh, that's it's hard to decide because I've just seen so much. I mean, I mentioned visiting Jacob's Pillow, the Norman Rockwell Museum, Mass MoCA, MFA, a number of organizations in Lawrence like Elevated Thought. To see the spire in Medfield that's being renovated now. I love going to uh, oh, the name escapes me, but it's the sculpture that designed the Lincoln statue at the Lincoln Memorial, to see the small version of his art. I love going out to Martha's Vineyard to see the museum there, and hitting up Nantucket. It's just it's too rich to sort of explain, but I've just really loved seeing the many things that have happened. Most of the building projects take a little bit longer than what I've been here. Usually, I'm visiting them when they're about to start a campaign, and a few I've gone to after they've renovated. I don't think I've gone to any that were designed from the ground up. I go to many that have renovated or expanded, and it's super exciting.
How about the programs like theater program or any arts program, especially dealing with the youth and then maybe youth thriving in the art? I know city music at Berkeley kind of had a lot of it to do with Mass Cultural Council support as well, but seeing the youth there to like what you told reflected, and thank you so much for sharing your personal story that I ran a nonprofit for 12 years with youth in a detention program, and I know the impact that music can make, arts can make. And then seeing through the grants and a bigger perspective that you are running, Mass Cultural's Cultural Council is helping all this organization, but really when it comes to the youth growth and development that you've seen, what is the reward and joy you might have seen so far?
Well, if anyone wants to see me cry, they just only have to invite me to see youth doing art, and I will cry a lot. I just saw yesterday a production of Matilda at the Wheelock Family Theater, and there was maybe 8 or 9 kids on stage, and half the show I was crying. I remember being at Originations Gala, which is a performing arts organization, and just seeing those kids up there having a great time just brought so much joy to my heart. I remember going to an organization in Lawrence, the name escapes me, and looking at children make art. And again, my heart is just filled with joy. So it's true. And I think that uh, beyond the things that happen to lots of youth people, like my story, I think the other thing that happens for young artists is that your mind gets expanded to the creative process, which I think is so good for problem solving. I think all the problems of the world can be solved through creativity, and if we have young people learning how to use those creative muscles and seeing that they can take a bunch of materials and put it together and make art, or go to a bunch of dance classes and then be able to do a dance, or take a script and create a character and perform it for thousands of people, I think shows the power of art, because those kids will grow up to become creative members of our society, and hopefully they will help us solve the problems that we have created on this planet.
That is beautifully said. So my last question for you before we close our episode, how can people be more involved with the movement of Mass Cultural Council, and then what kind of help maybe you are looking for?
Well, there are many things. There is one, I hope that you will all go to and attend arts events in your communities. I hope you will take lots of people and share information on your social media about the arts that are happening in your organizations. I also hope that you will let your legislators know, both local and state legislators know, how important the arts are to your life, to your community's life, to the health and the vibrancy of the state, and just send them a note and say, please support arts, please support Mass Cultural Council, please support what's happening on our local scenes. That will go a long way. I think the more legislators hear from people in their district as opposed to me, it will really expand the world. And I would be remiss if I didn't say the arts are still struggling because of COVID. And so if you have the means or you're able to volunteer or make a contribution, I'm sure the arts organizations would be so grateful for that support.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for coming to Around Foxborough today and then sharing your thoughts and then your projects with us.
Thank you so much. I look forward to visiting Foxborough again.
Wonderful. So thank you again, everybody, for watching another episode of Around Foxborough. My name is Julie Love. I'm your host. Our executive director is Michael Weber. Our director is Paul Beck. Our website is fcatv.org. You can click on video on demand and then click on studio shows and then watch more episodes of Around Foxborough. See you next time.